What's happening, you cool cats and daddios? This is Duderonomy. I'm Dan.
And I'm Bryan.
And we're talking about hot rodding teenagers from Dimension X.
The penultimate episode in season 1 of the original run of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1987. And I didn't even, something we didn't mention that I want to bring out right now is that this was a week-long mini-series. So they started broadcasting these on December 14th in 87, and then the final episode came out on the 18th. This, of course, being the one that came out on the 17th. I forgot that this rolled out in a week, like a mini, like movie of the week scenario, which I think is a really cool way to launch something.
Oh my God.
And kind of, they certainly weren't the first to do that. Some other shows have done that, but most of the time, even the week models, at least now it's settled into the normalcy where they'll premiere a couple of episodes as a taster. And then if it's streaming or it's broadcasting, you're still waiting week to week kind of thing. But this was like pre-Netflix binge dump. Am I right?
I can't even imagine a modern cartoon with a regular schedule, much less releasing more than one episode in a week.
Oh, yeah. Good Lord. I mean, that must be a lot of the explanation behind some of the things we've noticed so far in the series, like the subtle animation differences. They must have been farming this out to multiple studios simultaneously. And I think I remember maybe reading something about that way back in the day.
They had to.
But yeah, like cartoons now, one, they're severely lacking theme songs, and this is the hill I'm going to die on. Cartoons, kid shows need to bring back the damn theme song. I'm tired of this like Spider-Man splash screen right into the episode. I need to be singing about webs, and I need to be singing about radioactive blood, and Aerosmith needs to do a damn guitar solo, and I want it to take at least 90 seconds of my life away from me. That's it. Like, I'm tired of this. We need TV shows back into the TV show format. And
a special shout out to She-Ra for having an awesome intro.
Yes, there are exceptions to the rule these days, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So like there's a couple ones that are out there. And I think one of the funny things actually is that like much younger aimed animation still has the 90-second intro. Like I'm thinking in my head, like, of course I have a 4-year-old daughter at home. We watch a lot of like educational type TV with her, and Bluey is our latest craze as well as like the rest of the world, it seems. But it has a really catchy intro. The music in that show is incredible. But it has an intro. Paw Patrol has an intro. All those kinds of shows have intros, whereas the more like teen and over aimed American series seem to be like, whatever, we're just going to try and pack as much into 22 minutes as we can. We can't afford an opening intro.
I get that, and I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to frown on it. I mean, it's trends, right? It'll change again someday, but I'm just saying, like, as a kid who grew up in the 80s, 90s, the theme song was half of the damn show experience, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that it hasn't boomeranged back yet, because like anime is huge worldwide now, and anime has a really strong tradition of pairing with popular artists to do their opening songs, and there are some classics out there like right now. Like I'm thinking Demon Slayer, like it has an incredible opening.
Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
I mean, anime credit music is a genre in itself.
For sure.
Anyways, off the tirade, we have come back full circle in the animation. This looks a lot like the same team that must have animated episode 1. They got the beaks back. I'm just shouting that out because I appreciate it, and I personally like that style.
Yep.
Turtles should have beaks.
All of Michelangelo's gear for the title page, or Mikey stole swords, I guess.
We have a couple of really good animation catches in this episode. I was saying before we started recording, I got a lot of notes on this, almost 7.5 pages on this 22-minute kids show from 1987, just because I have a lot of thoughts and feelings. And I was saying that I think that this is kind of where the show really started to hit its stride. Like it was good, very good up until this point, even from objective standards. But like this episode really smacks you in the face. And it's like, this is what Turtles, it's going to get fucking weird, bud.
I think it does a really great job of, I mean, it's only the 4th episode in, but really hitting at what Eastman and Laird kind of lean into in the comics. They're just like, yeah, you know what? They're aliens. There's all these different people that come from all over the place. Some of them are an alien race that come from the 1950s of America, or are like really strong in the rockabilly scene.
Oh, never really put those 2 and 2 together. The rockabilly versus the rocks. Yeah, I swear to God, like whoever these animators were, because Krang obviously based on the Utroms and whatnot, but the Rock Soldiers or Stone Warriors, we'll get into that conversation. That comes later. The Rock Soldiers, they were never part of the original canon in the comics. They were something that kind of got retconned in different iterations, but there was no version of the Rock Soldiers in the original Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird Mirage run. So these were invented for the show. And it's clear, like, this is the beginning already of them just like throwing a dart at something and being like, and now it's a monster. This is like it precursor Pokemon. Like this Pokemon is just a milkshake machine. This mutant is a pizza box.
Oh man, for real. It is just, but like I didn't do research prior to recording this episode, but it is funny to go from like, okay, we've got the Utroms become Krang, and Krang is like an exiled. I mean, they never really talk about that in this series, but we do know that he's exiled from earlier, or maybe this episode, actually. This episode is where he talks about it.
It is. We find a little bit of Krang's lore in this, but again, in the later seasons, season 7, Red Sky season, when we do meet the Krang as a species, or whatever they're called. They're not called Krang. They have a different, I forget what the name is, but we do, like, we full on get like Krang's family tree in this kind of.
Right.
Eventually in the seasons that we kind of didn't watch as kids because they got poopy.
But it's interesting how like the Triceratons do come to this series, and that's the one that like I more connect the dot to like them when you start talking about Dimension X and the like people that Krang is at war with.
Yeah. And
instead you get this group first, which is like such an interesting swerve for the show. And it really does fall in line with it. Like you get their whole explanation of like the war that's happening in Dimension X and how like they just want to have fun, and no one is letting them have fun, and that's why they're rebelling against this whole war. It's not like they're not really fighting against Krang as much as they're fighting against literally everyone who is at war.
You don't know what it's like living in a place where everybody wants to do you in.
Dimension X is just a tiny town from Footloose.
Yeah.
Again, Dimension X didn't exist. It wasn't a concept in the comics. This is all invented for the show, and a great creative initiative. But Dimension X has been populated in different ways in different iterations too. Like this is probably arguably the most crowded version of Dimension X because they lean into it, but in later comic iterations and stuff, like Dimension X is basically just Krang's home, and they don't flesh it out too much in the IDW series. You know, we get a taste of the war and the rebellion and just the general Utrom kind of family, royal family kind of stuff with Quanon. But yeah, in this one, Krang's just a douche and he lost his body, and Dimension X is just, it's like somewhere between the Upside Down and where Gozer comes from in Ghostbusters, and that's Dimension X.
Yeah. Love it.
I do want to say, like, the fact that this is where the Turtle Van gets introduced makes it like top 10 episodes in the series, regardless of your position.
I love the Turtle Van. I love the Party Wagon. I love that it's just a car they stole from Baxter Stop.
I love that there's always there's always a story that you don't fully know. But yeah, like in 87, they steal the van from Baxter. They just straight up steal it. In like the Michael Bay ones, they just straight up steal one of the news vans, and then it just happens off screen. They just have it now. In the Next Mutation, they somehow stole a Hummer, right?
Yeah.
And then they had there's a reason for the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They found a UFO in a junkyard, right?
It's a movie prop. We just watched that
right.
episode like a couple weeks ago. It's a movie prop that found its way into a junkyard, and then they do some jobs for the junkyard owner.
That's right.
And then they steal it anyway because he won't give it to them.
The Turtles are heroes, but they're also like raving thieves. Again and again. I think I've said it before. I'm just going to plant this flag. I think my two favorite versions of a vehicle for the Ninja Turtles are the subway car from the 2012 animated series. I just thought that was
good.
Genius, absolutely genius usage. And I do have a soft spot for the garbage truck from the second Michael Bay movie. It's probably my favorite part about the entire series, because like it was just dope. And it's just like, yes, that's exactly where turtles would live and drive.
I honestly think this is kind of my favorite.
And the Party Wagon is the classic. It set the standard. It's the OG Batmobile that was just a red Studebaker.
Yeah.
But they got better. Like,
it's just funny how you see them, like, especially in this episode, like put it together. You know, it's like they're taking all of this equipment from Baxter Stockman's office, I guess.
Yeah, that's another point. They not only stole his car, they stole all of his gear.
And why did, like, Baxter Stockman was making these like rat catching robots? Why does he have the equipment to make a swing out door on the van and like a turret?
And that's 80s technology logic for you. If it's got buttons, it can do anything. I do want to say I really love that they just straight up push the thing up an apartment building stairwell.
Yeah, how wide are those stairs?
Right. There's no apartment building in New York. Oh, wait, no, we established that Baxter Stockman lives in a shithole in New Jersey. So even then, does he have a whole like loft? Like, does he rent a warehouse?
It's wonderful. And then they drive it out of the building.
I got to know here. This says the fuck is Donnie's workout routine because he peeled open the van like a can of tuna.
Oh my God. Yes. Why? This is the reason I'm here. This is the stuff that I really enjoy from the show. Or I wrote down, I'm trying to remember the full line now, but they have this like one serious moment while they're building the party wagon where Donatello is like, why are we the people who are fighting the Shredder and fighting Krang and trying to save the lives of all these humans who won't give us the time of day? Like, why don't they do it?
But us, turtles, outcasts of society, why do we have to stand alone against the forces of evil?
Face it, man, it's the only job we're qualified for.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. There's some seriously good comedy writing in this. It is refreshing. Like a lot of it has aged well. Some of it has aged very poorly. But a lot of it aged pretty well.
I have the episode on in the background now, and I just watched Donnie peel off the side.
Right. Okay. So this is really the first introduction of them being superheroes, right? Because in the comics, they're just ninjas. They're man-sized, they're man-strong, and they're just big, right? in the cartoon, it sets the precedent of like, well, they can beat up monsters.
Yeah, they're taking nunchucks through metal in the first couple episodes, and
yeah,
here's Donnie just ripping apart a van
with like no effort either, not even like a flinch or a grunt. It was impressive,
and no one helps him either. They're all just standing around watching him modify this van to be like like a military grade weapon in 20 minutes.
That scene is just missing one cutaway back to April's face being like, the fuck? I making a note, more of that impressive continuity that I mentioned in the last episode, where they kind of flash back and they talk about the cops and Stockman and Mousers and April losing her apartment. You know, they don't have to reference this stuff. The kids are just moving forward.
Yeah, but
they do. And I think that's pretty good.
There's a lot of continuity in this, and I guess it makes sense it being like a mini series. If they were showing one episode a day for a week, it's like, I mean, honestly, it would be more fresh in the memory, but it makes sense that they would have like leaned into that continuity.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of the stuff that appeals to us nostalgia heads too. Is just going back and just realizing how fleshed out it was. Because I mean, as a kid, there's more turtles today. What did they do last week? I don't remember. I'm 7.
Yeah.
And that's why every episode is kind of a self-contained. But even, following trends, more and more series these days, even aimed at kids, have arcs, right?
Yeah.
There's character development. And this kind of stuck out to me in a lot of the other cartoons in the 80s where there was development.
There's a surprising amount of world building in this.
No, really. It really kind of motivates the plot of this pilot miniseries thing as its own self-contained movie. Like you could just edit all these together, take out the intros and the title cards, and it's one big movie.
Yeah, that is true.
Shouting out the IKEA van parts that Donnie throws in stuff.
Oh man, I just got back to where Leo tells Donnie, like, you got to make the roof at least 3 feet higher so I can practice my sword swinging while you're driving.
Before we do move on, though, what other jobs would the Turtles be qualified for, harkening back to the former No? You know, in 2007, Donnie was an IT specialist. Mikey entertained children. What jobs could they do?
There's a whole episode of Rise of the TMNT where they have a mascot dance-off in Times Square.
Yeah, that would do it. Yep.
So that they could do that.
Tracks.
Although it would probably be just as sad as Ghostbusters 2, but they're doing parties.
Oh, well, I thought it was going to be He-Man. Shout out Jason Reitman. Nice job on Ghostbusters Afterlife, by the way, bud. I know you listen to the show. Okay, so let's talk about Krang a little bit. We flash back to the Technodrome, still just kind of like cooking around. And I wanted to ask this. What direction did the voice director give Pat Fraley? Is Krang eating spaghetti? Is he just pure calamari? Is he a cannibal? Where did that sound come from?
My stone warriors are amassed in Dimension X, waiting to overrun this world at my command. But I cannot let them see me like this.
Because he really starts getting into the croaks here.
It is such an interesting character choice.
He's made choices, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I wonder if he used it as sort of like an anchor, you know, like he's trying to. I mean, I could see it. I guess is what I'm saying with like, okay, here's this brain. It's going to be, if you were to see a brain outside of a human body, it would be oozy. It would be like squishy. It would be making all of the sounds just for movement. Let me relate that to the audience through the voice that I'm choosing for the character as well. And that's kind of how I think those guttural sounds fit in the character.
It's just, I mean, it's incredible voice work. It really is. Pat Fraley is a severely underrated voice actor. But it's still just like, where the hell did you come up with that?
Oh man, it's such a good voice too. Like there's something about it that is inherently comedic and menacing. And they walk that line so often with the bad guys in this card, at least in this first season.
I mean, top to bottom, the voice cast in this show is just A+. Like the later guest casting, everything. Nobody drops the ball at any point in this series, front to back.
It's so cool. And I love how now that we're like talking about Krang, is like he's so self-conscious about his missing body. They really play up that aspect of him, that like he's supposed to be this great warlord who's controlling Dimension X and in this massive war to dominate the whole dimension. But he doesn't want his soldiers to look at him.
Yeah. I made a lot of notes about that moment, which comes up a little bit later in the episode. But yeah, there's this kind of like brilliant character development for Krang where he shows the vulnerability. And it's like, we're suddenly getting really serious about this cartoon. But it's like, oh man, that's what made him stick as a villain.
Yeah, it's also like it shows how well these first bunch of episodes were written, because the whole time Krang is like, you shouldn't be out there fighting these turtles. You shouldn't be worrying about them. You should be building my body. I could crush them in a second once you get me my body. That's all he's talking about. And it's like, because he knows at some point that portal is going to open, or he's got to open the portal and he's got to go back. And he doesn't want his soldiers to see him in what he perceives to be a weak position.
I mean, if I lost all my body, I'd be pretty upset too.
For sure. It's just really funny to see. I don't know. It's not even funny. I just think the writing of these first 4 episodes should really be applauded. Like, there's so much continuity in these 4 episodes of a kid's show.
And weird continuity too, not logical stuff like, oh, they started at point A and they ended at point B. It's they started at point A and then they went backwards into a different dimension and came out the other side of the multiverse and came up. I mean, man, it's a little exaggerated for the level of, development that they have in the show, but it's better than most at that time. Like you said.
Yeah, they literally are coming from another dimension, so it's not too far off your description.
No, but I mean, as far as, where the story goes, there's no just like, and we're going to go stop the bad guy. We're going to stop the bad guy, but we're going to pit stop with a bunch of weird shit on the way. It all somehow works.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the best part of Ninja Turtles as a franchise. It is like the ultimate potpourri dump. You can't go wrong. You can introduce anything. Oh, he's going to cross over with a character that has absolutely nothing, or they're going to cross over with a character that has nothing to do with them. That is in fact a sentient carrot that has been lit on fire. Sure.
Why not?
Yeah. So we talked about the introduction of. Oh wait, before we get to the Stone Warriors, the iconic scene going down the stairs.
Oh, I would. I wasn't gonna leave the Technodrome yet because there's one shot of the other punks.
Oh right.
We get to see those other mutations, and when I first watched it, I thought there were 4 there, and there's just 3, and the one in the middle is this weird like half mutation of a dog, and I don't know, his former head with no eyes on it anymore. What is going on with that guy?
Hold on a second. I'm skimming back to try to find it. Look close.
Like there's the lizard guy and the bat, and you could tell like, okay, I know exactly which 2 characters those were who got mutated into those things. But then the one in the middle is like,
oh yeah,
like what is going on with him?
Yeah, he's got like a bulldog head with like a former tumor head on his shoulder. Oh, that's messed up. I've never noticed that before. The only thing I can maybe guess is like there's supposed to be a 4th guy standing behind them.
Yeah.
But somebody didn't tell the colorist.
Oh my God. It like, I hope it's a 4th person that's supposed to be, or that like, I don't know, they mutated and fused together or something. I have it still framed on this shot and it's bothering me. I'm gonna move along.
It's 3 minutes and 28 seconds into the episode. For those of you watching digitally, take a closer look at what the hell we're talking about. It is pure nightmare fuel. And for the record, we are 3 minutes and a half into this show, and we are 25 minutes into the recording of this episode. So go get a snack.
As we should be.
All right. So what I was saying before, we come to one of the best scenes in the entire series, and that is when the Ninja Turtles drive a large military-esque van down the stairs of a high-rise apartment building.
Man, the suspension on that thing is killer.
Yeah, they take a lot of stairs if you really kind of go back through the series. That the Turtle Van is pretty resilient. But wait, we need to agree on an official title. I've always called it Turtle Van, even though I know it's technically canonized as the Party Wagon. What do you call it?
Oh, I always called it the Turtle Van too.
I think most people do. Okay, so Turtles busted down the street, zooming down, and then we get the portal open and the neutrinos, and the Rock Soldiers burst into the Technodrome, and we get the first introduction and the name drop of Stone Warriors. Now, they name drop them a couple times in the episode, but in my headcanon, I always call them Rock Soldiers. And if you Google them, they show up with results as Rock Soldiers. Stone Warriors are more referred to as like legitimate, Japanese terracotta statues. Also, I'm pretty sure Stone Warriors was the canon name for the bad guys in the 2007 CG animated movie, and maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I would have to look that up. I always called them Rock Soldiers, and yeah, I just did a brief Google too, and that comes up on like every result, although there's also like often called Stone Warriors, Stone Soldiers, or Rock Warriors. Like, okay.
I'm putting a pin in that so that we can kind of keep an ear out for it, because I want to see where it stabilizes in the series. And while I'm at it, where my General Trag stands at, the OG, the badass.
I love their voices too.
Oh yeah. I really like actually the Rock Soldiers as characters every time they return. I think they're pretty just dope. I hate them in the video games though. Fuck them.
Oh yeah, well, they're just constantly plowing across the screen and taking you out. They have to do that though, because if you learn one thing about the Rock Soldiers from the very first time you see them, is that they are terrible shots.
Yeah, that's also very true. But they just spray.
The Rock Soldiers and Bebop and Rocksteady are standing 5 feet away from each other, and they cannot hit each other.
And holding perfectly still, too, let's point out.
Yeah, no one's moving. No one is, like, attempting to dodge. They are just full auto spraying and missing everyone.
Yeah. From the Stormtrooper Academy. I had a note here that says Shredder seems like a pretty tolerant and adaptable guy. He's it would be really difficult to like transition from a Japanese mob boss to like an intergalactic, interdimensional like warlord. But he's just got like these interlopers and he's trying to like bogart Krang's entire team, and he's just like down with all of it. No one at any point steps back and goes, why?
Well, that's like so much of the series so far. There's the whole, I think we brought this up before, but there's the whole idea that like, oh, the turtles have to hide from man because no one would accept them. And like literally everyone does.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting that like Shredder is a pretty modern guy. You know, he's an old fashioned Japanese ninja master, but he's just like, he's inundated with punks and alternative lifestyle and alternate hair colors. And I'm sure that some of the punks have unique pronouns, as they should. And I just feel like, Shredder's pretty cool for like playing ball with a lot of different people on his team,
Oh yeah. He cares about one thing and one thing only. And that is killing the thing that he made for some reason.
All right.
He's like, I really want to kill Hamado Yoshi, so I'm going to mutate some turtles to do it. Oh, man, that didn't work. Better kill him.
Backfired spectacularly. All right. You already dropped the Leo roof thing and their unsafe driving practices. We're going to get a little more into that. I also want to point out that Mikey wanting to put a pizza oven in the van, definite food truck visionary there. I don't know if pizza trucks existed at that point in the New York City food truck game, but seems like, again, another one of those things ahead of the curve. Simpsons did it first. Turtles did it first.
Oh, man. Absolutely. More pizza trucks, please. I want to point out that, two things kind of switching between the rock soldiers and the neutrinos. First of all, again, the writing in this, incredible. Just the idea that there's this massive war going on in Dimension X that Krang is leading, and the reason why, like when the rock soldiers are like, why should we stop those kids in the flying cars? Because they encourage people to have fun, damn it. Like, that's just great 80s villain writing. Like, why are you doing these horrible things? Because if we don't, people will have fun.
It really just is Footloose. Hey, before we move on to picking back up where our turtle buddies are, did you ever throw any of your toy cars down the stairs?
Yeah.
Okay, me too. Surprisingly, I had the flying car that was like foot decked out. I don't know if it had a name or anything like that. But it was,
yeah.
That's how you got one of the first neutrino version cars in the Turtle toys. I had that. Does not handle stairs well.
Yep. No, I tell you, the turtle van does not either.
No, that roof is coming off on the first step. All right. So picking back up with our turtle friends, heading towards the Twin Towers, World Trade Center.
Yep. The neutrinos break out of the Technodrome. They're flying all around. April has a heart attack while driving for pretty much no reason.
You beat me to it. I just wanted to say, okay, so before we get there, there's some really, really great animation in this episode. Some really great tracking shots, motion shots, coming up over the hill, heading towards the World Trade Center, coming around the corner, heading towards the subway station. Some really great art. And then there's April. And I want you to say it with me, Dan. Ready? On 3, 2, 1. Roger Dodger!
I can't. I'm laughing too hard.
It's like that was the first turtle meme.
I just want that on repeat all the time. It's such a good gift. Give a timestamp for that part. Oh my god.
Roger Dodger happens at. Hang on, where is it?
I have it at 5:35 on the Google Play version of the series.
Just throwing back to something I forgot in the neutrino introduction. It's just. So, and like when the portal opens up and the cars come through, the big setup is like Krang is have some horrible villainous monster rival thing that's like some Lovecraftian beast. No, it's just Gen X. Like that is his greatest fear is Gen X.
It's just kids driving, having fun.
So, did you notice in the moment too, like when the van is coming around and they're heading towards that subway station right before the neutrinos burst out, that the subway is labeled the IRT?
I did not notice that.
What the hell do you think that means? Like, for those who've never been to New York, the actual subway system, bus system, is called the MTA, the Metro Transit Authority. And then, you know, Chicago's got its own thing, and BART, and LA, and but what the hell would the IRT stand for?
So I didn't notice that, and this is actually a really deep cut because prior to the MTA organizing, there were two different subway systems in New York City. And
are we about to get a real history lesson?
Yeah, and one of them was the IRT. It's the Interborough Rapid Transit Company.
I had no idea about that.
Shout out! I remember this started to sound familiar. Shout out to my friend Rob Signum if he ever listens to the podcast, because he taught me this at one point. But there was the Brooklyn Manhattan Transit Corporation and the Interborough Rapid Transit Company, and they merged and became the MTA.
That is really fascinating, and a neat little Easter egg for actual, you know, time placing the Ninja Turtles. Not that they needed any help. That's so cool, dude. That might be my new favorite piece of trivia.
That is, I did not notice that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's really cool.
Very observant. All right, so now we're heading back to the Technodrome to catch up with the Lovebirds. And I wanted to raise a glass to the Technodrome theme. We've talked about the main theme of the show, and we briefly just shouted out how great the music is in it. But I want to point out how awesomely iconic that Technodrome theme is. That just weird synthy drone with kind of the heart monitor thing going on in the background. What a great, perfect atmosphere for villains, right?
For sure. I mean, the music overall is really good. I'm thinking of like when the cars break out.
Like the rock and roll, the rockabilly kind of surf rock kind of stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, man.
But that doesn't get reused nearly as much as the Technodrome theme. So perfect. it sounds like Krang is singing it. All right, so this is the point where we come up on with the most uncomfortable character building for Krang, where the rock soldiers / stone warriors finally break into the room, and he has like a full-on emotional meltdown about them seeing him.
Oh yeah.
So skip ahead to 8:27, maybe it's 7:27 for you, and tell me something doesn't go very wrong with the animation scaling in this part. It's a camera shot from behind Shredder's knee. The Stone Warriors appear to be in scale with them, but all of a sudden Krang is like less than a foot tall.
Oh yeah, he's so tiny.
It never like occurred to me until I was just rewatching it tonight.
Again, I don't know if that's something that is like an animation mistake or something they did on purpose to really lean into his insecurity, being like, I'm supposed to tower over my soldiers. I'm supposed to be this huge warlord, and here I am. I don't even go up to the boot of my soldiers.
Just picturing Krang on Coney Island coming up to the Zoltar machine being like, I want to be big. Also that weird dynamic relationship between them where they're like, your body, my body, don't look at my body, but look at your body.
Don't look at me!
My lord, what has happened to your body?
It's a long story. I lost it when they banished me to this miserable mud bowl.
Oh man.
Just weird. So the neutrinos, let's talk about them a little bit before we move any further. They're beatniks.
Yep.
They're hippies.
Yep.
They're hipsters.
They're kind of everything.
They're Gen X and Gen Z at the same time. What other word cloud can we apply to them?
I love just like everything about them. I love their style. I love the language. I love them being like, yo, this is Dumbsville, man.
Also want to shout out the eternal Tress MacNeille is the voice of Kala.
Yeah.
And even through the weird pitching effect that they use on the neutrinos to make them sound like chipmunks, you could tell Tress MacNeille, you one of the OGs, babe. There's another great animation error at 9:20 where Trag and Granitor do a little voice swap.
I want to just start calling out some of the lines that they have, because you've got such great things like let me go, you cube.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like Tarantino, like, don't be such a square, you know?
Later on, they like stay cool and like, cool, Daddy-o, we are frozen.
That's a great line. That is an outstanding Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque line. All right, moving back into the turtle van and Hot Pursuit coming up. And we got
have we gotten to the part where they take a break and are like playing an arcade?
Playing an arcade. Oh, not there yet.
Okay.
We're still pursuing the neutrinos as they fly through Midtown. But as we've seen from old Roger Dodgers driving, and generally that the party wagon is never on more than 2 wheels at a time as it zigzags down the street as if it's avoiding a fucking crocodile.
They're heading south and north. They're heading south and north.
I mean, that explains why April's doing like full 90-degree turns on the fucking steering wheel every 3 seconds.
Yeah, good thing no one is ever out on the streets in this New York City.
How the fuck are they standing in the back of this van looking at a computer screen? They should be thrown around like potatoes. There's no way that they're standing up during that kind of driving. April's a monster, and she should have her license revoked. She must moonlight as a friggin' medallion driver.
Oh man, this like Donnie has some really awesome tracking equipment in this too. The little Tron lasers on the map.
Oh yeah, did Stockman strip a friggin' submarine or something? The next thing I have written down is fuck yeah, turtle launcher.
Oh man, there's so many good things about this. I mean, you essentially get the shot from the theme, like the opening animation where they get launched out of the van up into the air. It's like you get it from a different angle. They have like perfect trebuchet dynamics. They get launched into the cars. Oh
yeah, it's
only to have the ejection seat on them.
Remind you, Donatello designed that contraption this morning.
Also, Donnie always getting shell damage.
Donnie and Raph, doesn't it? Oh, not Raph. No, it is just Donnie.
Donnie gets scraped against the building while he's holding on to the side. And I just like, wow, talk about odd continuity between series. Like, he just always gets a messed up shell.
It's true. It makes me wonder if that was part of the reasoning. In spoilers and IDW, Donnie dies and gets brought back as Metalhead for a minute, and then they just straight up rip Metalhead's shell off and graft it to Donnie's old body and put his mind back in it because of magic. But like also in the Mirage run, the Peter Laird run, Volume 4, Donnie straight up gets shrunk down by accident, can't unshrink himself, and ends up piloting a mech in that too. And not to mention like throwing back to the obvious Image arc where this is the first time his skeletal remains were absorbed by an android.
Yeah, that he's had a rough time.
Really has. I think Donnie's the most tragic of the turtles. We got a good one-liner out of Raph with Bookum Dono. Hawaii 5-0 went way over my head. I wanted to point this out from the shell scratch. Zach says, scratch one turtle. And I think that signifies the first moment in the series where a new character properly identifies and classifies the turtles as turtles. Because everyone else is like, what are you, frogs? Are you some sort of punker? Or, you know? And then Zach's like, scratch one turtle. And it's like, how do you know that? Do they have turtles in Dimension X? It implies that they do.
I liked Mikey and Leo's attempt on the other car where Leo, this guy who has 2 swords on his back at all times, is like, I'm going to force him to land with my elbow pad. And he just jumps down and blindfolds him.
And then he's able to pivot so well as a voice actor because in the very next breath, he completely changes his demeanor and delivery. And Michelangelo just looks at him and goes, hold the stick up, Michelangelo.
Yes, thank you. That was my next note too.
What a weird direction. That was definitely somebody did not get editor's notes on that, and they took the 4th cut and was like, wrong.
It's also a steering wheel.
True.
So what stick is he pulling up?
I mean,
there are other controls in there, I guess. It's such a great visual gag because he so confidently tells him, pull the stick up, Michelangelo, and you see Mikey ripping at the steering wheel.
You're right. But looking at the cars, they're clearly based around catalytic converters of the 1950s, which they would be stick shift. So just putting that out there.
For sure.
And there's a part when Raph and Don land in the blue car and with Zach and Kala, and Raph just picks up Zach, or maybe it's Donnie, and throws him in the back seat.
Yep.
Okay, does Zach call him a pube?
Let me go, you cube.
No, I think it was "Let me go, you cube."
Oh, that's cube. Yeah, okay. Because it definitely sounds like pube.
I mean, that would probably make more sense for New York City, at least.
Yeah, I'm going to start borrowing that. April continues to have absolutely no idea what's going on, but being a proper team player on that, I just want to say April's a boomer. And then the part, okay, so now what you mentioned, now we've reached the arcade where they're just like burning time. One, what the fuck is wrong with those clowns?
Oh man, there's so much. There's so many things.
It makes Pennywise look like a teddy bear. This thing's terrifying. I don't understand it, and I don't want it in my life.
It's like it's such odd prosthetics to have to wear for your job.
I don't know if they've established that they're prosthetics, Dan, but hey, you do you. More worried about the turtles' well-being than anyone else's in this one. Well, also, like, I just have a note here that says just gave up on disguises altogether, huh?
Oh yeah, no, the turtles continue to be the worst ninjas,
and with like vulnerable victims that they're trying to hide, like fugitives that they're trying to hide, no less. Terrible strategist, Leonardo. What the hell, man? I also wanted to say, like, this is our I want to start something. This is our LaGuardia moment, where the clown is just calling them like crazy characters. I think is the reference that he makes when he just sees a bunch of man-sized turtles playing pinball.
Yeah. What do you expect in this city?
Yeah, and I'm calling that the you want to go to LaGuardia moment.
You're going to LaGuardia, right?
We're going to be looking for it over and over in this series.
This is what we keep bringing up. Like, it has such an interesting view on New York. Like, visually, the city is a shithole, but most people are surprisingly cool with the turtles. But then later on in the episode, you get the cops who are just like, got like guns blazing immediately, or that old lady. But it's like the show only remembers that the turtles would have a hard time around humans when it's convenient.
Yeah, I feel like that is a story arc that they haven't touched on that they absolutely could in an iteration coming up, maybe in the Seth Rogen movie, of the turtles being like, no, we have to hide. We're too weird. And then they show up on like St. Mark's Place and are like, oh,
oh, this is fine.
This is fine.
Let's get some jobs. We'll get a brownstone in 400 years.
Yeah. We're almost to we're not close to the end.
I just have one more comedic note of the arcade, which is that at some point, actually, maybe it's before the arcade. I might have missed it, but the neutrinos are talking to each other about the turtles and like the new dimension that they see themselves in. And one of them goes, they've probably never heard of asteroid pinball. And my immediate response was, excuse me, I had Windows 95. I had asteroid pinball.
You did not. You had space pinball. Sorry to crush your dreams, but I know exactly what you're talking about. It was called space pinball.
I just have a note that's like, oh no, did the TMNT inspire the pinball game included with Windows?
Oh, I wanted to shout out, since we're talking about the neutrinos as well, that just like what terrific character design. The character design, again, in the entire series is just so wonderfully inconsistently consistent. But the neutrinos, like with the shape of the heads and the way the hair flows, and they just kind of look like walking Art Deco.
Yeah.
Great character design, just brilliant character design. Like they capture, you look at them and they've got like future pompadours, and you just get it. Like, oh, they're rock and roll kids.
Oh, daddy, this is one unhappy primitive society.
It was such striking character design, and it really does make them stand out from April, the turtles, but also all the bad guys as well.
Yeah, most importantly is the juxtaposition of their like sharp edged, kind of clean cut, flat colored, smooth textured, versus the rock soldiers, which are all craggly and brown and crunchy and great design.
This is one of the moments where I get maybe too a little serious for this kind of a show, but like, is it just me, or like, do the neutrinos have some really good commentary on even like today's society?
Do you have any weapons on that vehicle? Yeah,
They're required by law.
Yikes.
Oh man, that hits so hard.
It hits harder now than it ever has.
But just like even before that, where they're in the arcade and they're talking about like what is, what are you experiencing? What is going on? They're like, kids are in the way of their stupid war. They just are trying to get rid of us because we don't want them to fight anymore. And Kala comes in with this great line of,
just for the crime of being young.
holy shit.
Yeah. It's kind of up there a little bit with like that moment in Spy Kids 2 when Steve Buscemi looks off past the camera in this PG kids movie about like CG action from Robert Rodriguez, and he just goes,
Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
it's one of the most profoundly out of place moments in cinema history. That's right up there with Kala being like, oh, for the crime of being young, albeit a little more elodramatic.
Oh my God, that's a gut punch.
So great delivery too. I can't believe we're analyzing this, but it works. It totally works. And, it's the obvious commentary on the beatnik culture of the 1960s, the Vietnam War. But it applies to so many other places and will continue to be universal because humans are terrible.
And continues the connection between like music and counterculture and that, like that way of thinking and trying to fight against like nonstop wars and all those other awful things that we unfortunately have to talk about. The tank that the rock soldiers drive is awesome.
Was that a toy?
It must have been,
because it kind of looks like the Rat King thing, right? But it's not the Rat King thing. That's its own thing, but it kind of looks like that. The ship that Rat King has in like the Turtles in Time.
Oh,
I don't know. It's got kind of that similar design, but it's clearly not it because this is foot branded. I just don't remember if this specific thing was a toy because I want it.
I'm looking it up right now. Apparently there was a combo pack of Rock Soldier and like the fake turtles and the paper bag masks, and kind of wish I had that. That looks real cool.
Crooked Ninja Turtle Gang.
Yeah.
This whole sequence here, though, is just more of that great action animation. You got the turtle van kind of like Tokyo drifting and just like the shots coming over the camera and stuff. Just more great action sequencing.
Wow, I don't see that toy. That's crazy.
I wondered, and a missed opportunity right there.
For sure. Yeah, there's a turtle tank toy from the original line, but
yeah,
I don't see the Rock Soldiers.
Speaking of tanks, the NYPD would never have rolled up on this that quickly, let alone come in tow with the National Guard by default.
Yeah, some dirty rat must have squealed to the coppers about us. Yeah.
All right, really? I mean, that's not the National Guard, dude. That's the NYC SWAT. They got that stuff.
They have tanks?
That's what they roll out whenever there's a protest. You know what my favorite part about the tanks are?
What's that?
April is super cool fighting against it in a van that they built that day.
Spare parts in a cave.
She is just like, she went from, I want to learn more about these mutant turtles for a news story, to I am in a war with rock soldiers and a tank in a homemade van.
It's not a homemade van. It's a converted VW bus. Get it right.
It's just like flooring it in the middle of the night, loaded up with weapons. Like, hell yeah, April. I love this April. She's awesome.
Roger Dodger. I'll say, so they've introduced some of that sweet Dimension X technology, the Weather Maker.
It's beautiful with well-known weather patterns like Total Chaos.
This had nothing to do with Dimension X. Krang got this on the clearance shelf from Acme after Wile E. Coyote stopped ordering everything. It's just straight up Looney Tunes shit. Like Total Chaos. Yeah, Total Chaos. Okay.
That is my favorite part. It takes like Cobra Commander's Weather Dominator and just steps it up. Which is like, you know what? We're going to go for a blizzard and hurricane to just whatever it feels like. Also, there's a fair with I'm looking through the settings right now. There's fair with high clouds, mild showers, total chaos.
Total chaos. Yeah. No in between.
Oh man.
No heavy snow.
I just like that somewhere Mad Dictator Krang was like, you know what? Let's have a partly cloudy day.
Do you think Krang invented the technology? I never got the idea that he was a scientific genius. He's the rich Elon Musk putting it all to evil use.
That does make more sense.
I think so. All right, we're closing in, and we only got less than 10 minutes left in the show. And the rock soldiers get into a pickup truck, and no, they wouldn't, because it would collapse. There's that suspension is on par with the party wagon, because you got two have to be 1,000-pound sentient rocks sitting in a cab that would collapse. I have a problem with it. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief. I'm okay with rocks coming to life and speaking and forming feelings of nationalism. That makes sense. But them driving a pickup truck is too far.
And they just like immediately hop in. They're futzing with the radio, trying to get comfy.
As you do.
The thing I love about this scene is that in the show, all of the firearms they shoot lasers.
Yeah, that was parental censorship.
Except they all look like regular, like traditional firearms. And in the dialogue, they refer to bullets.
The bullets aren't stopping them.
It's just such a fun, like, visually they were limited by sensors. They couldn't have actual bullet ricocheting, but they could talk about guns all they wanted.
That's America, buddy. Where have you been? We got our first setup for Mikey being the sweet, sensitive, romantic type, and he shoots his shot with Kala. We'll never let anything happen to you. That's really setting the precedent for character development.
For sure. That happens again in the 2013 series, right?
When he's trying to nail Renette, yeah.
I think Kala too. Was it? Didn't the neutrinos come in? Oh no, the neutrinos were like giant rock things in that show.
The neutrinos were executed much different in the CG show, but the CG show had Renette from the comics, from Mirage Comics, the Time Mistress, or he wanted all up in that business, and he always will. My next favorite thing is when the air car drives past the camera and they do the spin dump and the turtles roll out of the cab right onto the ground without missing a beat. That was dope as hell. And I really like this part for a really stupid reason. When Donnie's like, get the silicon lubricant over there. It indicates to me that the Technodrome is a real lived in place. It's operational. It's not just fancy lights and buttons on the back panels to make it look future techy. Like they needed silicon lubricant for something. That's an actual functional chemical. It's not just all ooze. Like they probably needed that for the tank tracks.
And it's used all the time because they have a massive barrel just laying in the middle of the room.
Yeah. I mean, their storage leaves a lot to question. Silicon lubricant can be flammable, and that's very dangerous in an active fight scene. But point remains, I thought it was a nice little realism nod, ironically. I'm sure they have a drawer of like duct tape and extra pens and Sharpies and stuff too.
There are so many things in this fight in the Technodrome that I love, like the giant disc in the middle of the room that you could push the different slices to collapse and people fall through.
Yeah, that's a logical installation.
Which was also in the toy of the Technodrome.
Kind of.
Yeah, well, it was there. It just wasn't but in slices. You had to remove the whole thing, and then you could have your character fall into like the trap there.
There. Yeah, you're right.
I love when the turtles try and jump Shredder and Krang and the rock soldiers, and there's a force field there. Like they were in position and they were ready for the turtles this time. And then not Trag. What's the other one called?
Granitor.
Granitor is manning the American Gladiators cannon. And it just becomes like an episode of American Gladiators for about 10 seconds.
Oh my God, it totally is. Absolutely is. I like after the climax and the face off and Mikey shattered his nunchuck against Rock Soldier and everybody's kind of like bombing out and they're like, Shredder! And then he just fucking dips. You notice that? He just dips. He doesn't, I'll get you next time. Turtle's just like, poof, fucking gone, baby. He Batmans their ass.
Ninja smoke.
Every time the bad guy is like, "Ah, you foiled me," and then there's something, and he's just like gone.
It's great because he disappears in his own secret hideout.
I mean, if you were to disappear, that'd be the place. He's probably got more trapdoors you don't know about.
Well, that thing is huge. There's like 6 people who live in the Technodrome, and it's the size of a small country.
Hey, do you think it was a conscious effort? Like, they never touch on this in the actual plot or dialogue, but the neutrinos hop in one car and blast off back to Dimension X and leave the other car behind, and the turtles just keep it. They don't give it a reason, but it makes logical sense, right? They need it to escape the Technodrome. So that must have been, it's just like, it just happens. And it was like, oh yeah. And then they keep it. And that's why we ended up getting a toy.
The thing that I love the most about that car, though, is you get that scene where Leo cuts the Weather Dominator satellite thing and he falls in midair until they catch him in the car.
Yo, can we just say that was such a boss move because he did not have the contingency in place for that? Like, he didn't say, like, you're going to catch me or this is how it's going to go. He just fucking leaps out of the car at like 400 feet and just hopes for the best.
I can't get a clear shot.
Then I'll handle it.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't like talk to anybody about it. He just goes for it. But the thing that I like a lot is the animation there of the skyline and how it transitions from the storm back to like normal nighttime. It's actually surprisingly beautiful.
Yeah, no, they do a really great job. Like this has some of the best animation in the series.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah, it is. Like that crossfade works really well.
From that like reddish orange, which I guess maybe is a hint towards where the series will go, although they definitely had no idea they were going to do the red sky until they did it.
Yeah.
But you get that, and then it shifts back to the night sky with the star field in it. It's like, oh man, that was a cool shot.
It was really a cool shot. All right, so they saved the day. We're back at the turtle lair, and I just want to say, oh my god, the bunk beds are adorable.
The bunk beds are adorable. April reading A Good Night Story 6 times to a bunch of teenagers is adorable. Either the turtles published their own bedtime stories or somebody had seen them in the last 13 years and drew an image of them on the back cover.
Oh, I did not catch that. Is that seriously? Oh my God, you're right. 2147 is the time code. You can see the back of the book April is reading. And yeah, there's a blatant Ninja Turtle without his mask on chilling.
And then like Leo just comes in being like, yeah, I was trading again because that's just who I am.
Yeah, like that's the last note I have on the page is like, yo, Leo is ice cold, baby. But also like they have the entire New York sewer system at their disposal, right? And they all crammed together in one room. I'm telling you right now, that is not what teenage boys would prefer for a myriad of reasons that I won't get into.
It's such a like, oh man, that is such a funny aspect that like there's, and they do lean into that, right? Like the future series, they each have their own room and it's themed after all the things that they like. And, you know, it's more opportunities for marketing and all that other fun stuff. But here, nah, they're just, this is a single dad. He doesn't have room. He doesn't have the money for a 5-bedroom sewer.
I mean, you gotta appreciate and recognize the struggle Splinter doing his best to provide for his sons. I'm not shaming on it. Just saying it wouldn't have been preferred.
It's just so funny that like, I don't know if that's what they were purposely leading into, but it is kind of funny to think of it that like they could have, because there's nothing here like in the movies where, oh man, they lose their lair and they have to find the old abandoned subway station that they take residence in. It's like, nah, man, there's a whole abandoned city underneath New York City in this series. They chose this they just chose this 3-room sewer.
I always kind of like, this is just kind of getting off the beat, but I always liked when the turtles like change the locations of their sewer lair. Like we always know the sewer lair, but like in Turtles 2, the movie, they get the subway lair, and in the comics, they live in a water tower for a little while, and then they got the church in the Central Park. And I was always kind of cool. Like people forget, like turtles had to move home like 10 times.
Yeah,
because they kept getting blown up.
Hey, you and I talked about this off the podcast, but was it the Free Comic Book Day issue where they go in IEW where they go back to their original lair?
Oh, the 2022 annual is a masterpiece. Oh, it's beautiful.
So good.
So great. Okay, so we've gotten through episode 4. We're closing in on the end of season 1 from 1987, Ninja Turtles. What the theme? Let's talk about the theme of today's episode.
I like the idea, and it's like I don't know. It doesn't really lean into this so much when you consider Bebop and Rocksteady. Like the punks from the first episode, they've got to be what, like in their 20s, you'd say?
Yeah, probably. I'm guessing. Well, without the exclusion of Rocksteady, who looks like he's 40.
That's true.
But the punks are probably like post-college dropout.
And then, I mean, you start to see this, like it's the and it makes sense in a show that's about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it's the kids who are doing the right thing, the ones who are standing up to these evil bad guys and aliens and dimension hopping, whatever. Like, it's the neutrinos, it's the turtles, it's the ones who come together. Obviously, it's not one for one because you got allies like April.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, the kids are all right. It's a bunch of Gen Xers in the 80s writing tales about what would become millennials and how our allegiance is, and now we're all a bunch of bitter middle-aged people who despise our elders. So there you go.
There we go. That's the real message of the TMNT.
That's the story of the Ninja Turtles. Hate your elders. All right, let's wrap things up.
Let's end on that.
Overall, I've got my. I said in the beginning, this is one of my favorite episodes. I'm probably going to give this a perfect 10. Even with the mistakes, totally forgiven considering it's 1980s hand-drawn animation. But it was a great episode. You get Turtle Van, you get a bunch of world building, character development, some of the best action scenes in the entire series, and a lot of just really great character beats. What do you think?
I think the neutrinos are great, and I think they are some of the best allies that the Turtles have ever had in any iteration. They have such a unique character design. It's such a cool idea when, like you said, they were the writers of the show to borrow culture from different time periods in American history and be like, yeah, this counterculture is going to meet this counterculture, and they're going to see that they have a lot in common, and they're going to fight together to take down the bad guys. I just love that so much. It's so cool to see that, like, the 1950s car culture brought into this show. It's cool that they sort of leaned into rockabilly, which obviously has its roots in the 50s, but in the 80s you were getting the Stray Cats, so it was still very much a thing happening at that time, and it just shows a lot of creativity to take this like New York City based it's essentially like a superhero tale, but like a comic book story, and pull in all of these different kind of iterations. And I think this episode is the perfect representation of the writers being well and truly on top of their game and bringing such an interesting story and interesting characters for the audience to see.
Beautifully said. Now that you say that, though, I hadn't pieced things together. Now all I want is one more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reboot where they remeet the neutrinos and Zack is guest voiced by Brian Setzer.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Wouldn't that be so good? There's turtles on a hot tin roof drinking this pizza, 96 proof.
Come on, Nickelodeon.
Oh, man, that would be brilliant. All right.
Get Brian Setzer in TMNT, you cowards.
We'll start a hashtag. Okay. We have been talking about this for an hour and 12-ish minutes. I think it's about time to wrap things up. Dan, thanks so much. How the hell do we close this show?
Okay, Shredder, this is it.
Or just close with a making it great.
That's why I play right field. Where out where the dandelions go.
That's the Patreon goal. That's you subscribe to us and you get us singing the Pizza Hut commercial that was before the Ninja Turtles movie.
Saddest part is I can still remember it so perfectly.
Oh, 100%. And I could knock that out right now.
I haven't watched the VHS version of the show since somewhere in the probably late 90s. Ever since then, I've had DVDs or digital or something like that. Roughly, I don't remember the time I picked up the actual DVD, but that's the time window.
Like if a random guy came up to me and held a gun to my head and was like, sing the Pizza Hut commercial from before the Ninja Turtle movie on the VHS, not only would I have that in an instant, I'd have them crying by the end of it.
Okay, so we're going to close up today's episode that's gone on far too long, but for all the right reasons. Dan, tell us, what is our daily pizza affirmation?
Every day, positive and amazing pizza enters my life and leaves its mark.
Trust your friends. Love your friends, everybody. We'll see you next time on Duderonomy. Thanks for listening, Dan.
Duderonomy is produced by Brian Van Gelder and me, Dan Spitaleri. Brian edits and mixes the show and also designed our show art. Our theme music is composed by Mario Sello Nuñez. You can hear more of his music on Spotify, which we've linked to in the show notes. Find us on Twitter at Duderonomy_TMNT and send email to deuteronomy.tmnt@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Cowabunga!